Ask for more information. Here's the whole thing. Yeah, the stuff in here is also 17, because, again, how many?
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please, Dan.
Councilmember Burkhart.
Here.
Councilmember Dickman. Councilmember Leary.
Here.
Councilmember Mazer.
Here.
Supervisor Rufino.
Here. The pledge and the invocation are by Councilmember Burkhart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Bless us as we gather today for this meeting. Guide our minds and hearts so that we will work for the good of our community and help all your people. Teach us to be generous in our outlook, courageous in the face of difficulty, and wise in our decisions. Father, we praise you forever and ever. Amen.
Well, welcome, everybody. Tonight, we have actually 19 resolutions. Number 13 has been pulled. We also have, you pulled, not doing suspended?
Yes. Yeah.
They are? They're not. Okay. No suspended resolutions, one public hearing, 3 executive sessions, one being under the, number 8, collective bargaining negotiations. Then we have 2 under number 2 for personnel, code enforcement, and police. We will be closing in memory of 2 people, Donald Puccio and Paul Palter. At this time, I'll ask anybody from the audience if they'd like to speak on any of the 19 pre-filed resolutions. And I'll ask for a second time and a third time. Okay. We'll move on to official reports. Matt, anything from you?
Just to start, again, reiterating what we spoke about in the work session, the stormwater report for the month of April was provided this morning to the town. We have a couple of enforcement actions. 3803 Bowen Road will be receiving appearance notifications tomorrow, as well as our ongoing discussion with what is required to be a site plan amendment over on Erie Street. The application came in for an administrative building permit, which is contrary to what the local zoning code requires. And we'll make formal notification at this point, some point this week, to the applicant that he must file his site plan amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any reports, other reports, or town board committees?
Well, I do have, there's a hydrogen sulfur smell over by Americo on Aurora. It's been there quite some time. I did look into that with the help of Ed. Empire Geoservices did do surveying out there a few years ago, and there is a natural pocket underneath the bedrock. And unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done to get rid of that smell. It's just leaching through the bedrock. We talked about possibly doing something with that pocket, but it's naturally occurring, so it's just going to fill up again with it. So unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do through the town to change that.
Okay, I got a couple things.
Just made,
Go ahead.
I just made for Wednesday's board meeting is on 7 o'clock.
Okay.
So everybody knows.
Dog control, are you going to talk about that?
I was. As well, with dog control, we did have a visit from the state, Anne Marie Braid and Michaela Camiran. They both are licensed vet techs. The grant tasks completed were the Morton-style structure shelter, 6 two-sided kennels with guillotine doors that go in between the kennels themselves, epoxy flooring and sides, block walls for kennels, floor drains with covers, HVAC unit, garage, hose bibs with hot water, examining sick room, 2 extra large kennels for large dogs. Tasks to be completed before we can get our CO is correct sloping of kennel floors for washing and disinfecting, dog wash station in the garage, hose, bib water access to garage with hot water, washer and dryer will be taken from the old kennel, and the final claim of submission. Also discuss future funding and utilization their current staffs or our DCOs as resources for future planning and grant projects, and the outdoor play area as well. The only thing is on the outside that wasn't on here is actually putting over the window in the play area, like a bar fencing, so that if the dogs are jumping, they won't break that window. And that's also on it, yeah. Thank you.
Saturday, I attended the Arbor Day celebration. I know Michelle and John did a great job hosting it for us. It's always a great event in Lancaster. Some nice prizes were given away. A lot of participation, and it's great to see that, everybody taking interest in the tree planting and the restocking of the fish in the pond. But it is a nice day, and it's well organized, well run, and like I said, well attended. So thank you for your efforts on that. I also attended the Erie County Association of Erie County Governments meeting on Thursday night. One thing that came up was Erie County has set aside $10 million, and this is on our website, to assist small business owners countywide, grants up to $40,000 for exterior building renovations to their commercial properties. This could be for strip plazas or whatever, but I would encourage anybody in our township to apply. And again, when the money runs out, it runs out, but anybody can apply. There's no restrictions, pretty much. It's just as long as they're, not everybody's going to get picked for it, obviously, but can't get picked if you don't have your name in for it. I also received a communication from the library. They're hosting 2 chicken barbecues, Sunday, May 22nd, and Sunday, July 17th, noon until sold out. Dinners will be $13 a piece. I think that's all I have. Okay, all set? Yep. Okay, we're going to move on to our resolutions. I'd like to move resolution number 1. This resolve the minutes of the regular meeting of the town board held April 18, 2022. Being hereby approved, may I get a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. I'd like to move resolution number 2. This resolve the following audited claims being hereby ordered paid from the respective accounts as per abstract to be filed in the office of the town clerk by the assistant to the supervisor. It's check run number 050-22022. Total amount to be paid is $969,061.72. May I get a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Councilmember Mazur, number
Yes,
3.
Mr.
please.
Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution, move for its adoption. Be it resolved that the following building permit applications being hereby reaffirmed. There was a total of 71 total building permits in the town and village combined, 56 in the town, 15 in the village. I'll quickly go through them. In the town, 15 fences, 9 roofs, 2 generators to be installed, 6 residential alterations, 7 pools, 7 sheds, 5 decks, 1 installation of a sign, 1 pole barn, 1 cell tower, 1 porch cover, and 1 commercial alteration or addition. In the village, there was, like I said, 15, 6 roofs, 2 fences, 1 dumpster, 1 shed, 1 pool, 1 demolition, 2 residential additions, and 1 commercial addition. And also, there were 23 complaints that were called upon to the building department, and 3 businesses were inspected. And to finish it off, be it resolved that the building permit applications herein quoted CSW for conditional sidewalk waiver being hereby reaffirmed with a waiver of the town ordinance required for sidewalks. However, the waiver is granted upon the express condition that the town of Lancaster at any future date reserves the right to order sidewalk installation at the expense of the property owner.
May I get a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. We'll do one more. Councilmember Burkhart?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board. I'm offering Resolution 4 for adoption. Whereas the town of Lancaster is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings, and whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a non-for-profit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the building where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our communities, largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity, and whereas safety for all, building codes in action, the theme for Building Safety Month 2022 encourages us all to raise awareness about planning for safe and sustainable construction, career opportunities in building safety, understanding disaster mitigation, energy conservation, and creating a safe and abundant water supply to all of our benefit. And whereas each year in observation of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster does hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as Building Safety Month and authorizes the Town Supervisor to execute the Building Safety Proclamation and encourages the citizens to join with their communities in participation in Building Safety Month activities.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question, on the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes, I'm going to ask for a motion to open the public hearing number 1, which is for a special use permit for telecommunication tower co-location on Mohawk Place.
Mr. Supervisor, I offer the resolution to open the public hearing.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to read the communication, notice of public hearing on application for special use permit approval for a telecommunications tower co-location at Mohawk Place, upstate tower site, which will be identified as Dish Wireless LLC, and legal notice that pursuant to the authority set forth in Chapter 400 zoning, Article 14 administration and enforcement, 400-78 special use permits of Code of the Town of Lancaster, pursuant to a resolution adopted by the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster on the 18th day of April 2022. The said Town Board will hold a public hearing on the 2nd day of May 2022 at 7:15 p.m. local time here at Town Hall for the purposes of considering and possibly approving a special use permit application for telecommunications tower co-location by Dish Wireless LLC on the current tower located at Mohawk Place. Copies of the proposed application can be viewed at Town Hall. Would anybody like to speak on this public hearing? Please state your name and address when you come up to the podium.
My name is Don Carpenter. I'm with Carpenter Consulting Group. My address is 17 Industrial Street in Rochester, New York. The application is pretty straightforward. Dish Wireless has entered into a lease with Upstate Tower, also known as Dogwood Towers, to lease the 150-foot elevation level of the existing 160-foot tower. Dish Wireless represents something of a new transformation in the wireless cellular telephone market space. They're something of a market disruptor. They're proposing a nationwide 5G network that will rival Verizon's when complete. They own a very large chunk of spectrum. So they can be a very effective competitor in the cellular telephone industry. So I predict that, not unlike Cricket used to be before they got bought, and some of the other smaller carriers offered very low price, but high quality service. That's sort of Dish's aim. So this project is part of their obligation to build out 30% of the nation's population by, I think, this June, or maybe it's next June, but it's coming up very rapidly. So this is part of their first wave. There are a number of sites in Western New York and other metropolitan areas that they're targeting, mostly larger metropolitan areas like the Buffalo metro area. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I do. This is going to be a 5G tower, whatever you put up there. So it's going to be,
5G always makes everybody nervous, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
5G really stands for fifth generation. So the term LTE, which stands for long-term evolution, was supposed to replace all these numbered generations. We've been talking about different Gs since 3G, And all it really means is it's the new technology. It's the newest technology that's been developed. Most of the other carriers are really already using 5G. 5G is they use antennas that are mounted on the backs of or radios that are mounted on the backs of the antennas instead of in a radio cabinet at the base of the tower. That's one. They used to refer to that as edge computing, which is, you put the computer closer to the transmitter, which makes sense, but that's all kind of part of what 5G is. It's not any more harmful. It doesn't broadcast at a higher level, a higher output level. They still are broadcasting on their own licensed frequencies, which you can easily look up on the FCC's website. It shows you all the frequencies that every carrier owns. It's really not I don't want to say it's not a new development. Some of the frequencies that they're using, the way that they're assigning them is the innovation. In other words, some of the frequencies work better for digital signals and internet because the information is transmitted at a higher rate. Sorry about my voice. And the old legacy frequencies, the lower frequencies, are better for voice because it takes more bandwidth to carry the dense signal to produce your voice. So those frequencies are typically the better frequencies are down in the 800 range, the old Verizon territory, and they work very well. They can penetrate a wooden building. The higher frequencies don't penetrate structures that well, but they can carry more information at a faster rate. So it's really just a matter of how the same transmissions are used. It's not really anything different about the actual technology. It's just a slightly different way that they use it. In the same way that, I don't know how familiar you are with cellular stuff, but there used to be a thing called TDMA as well as CDMA. CDMA is now being phased out, but TDMA stood for time delay multiple access. And what that meant was you could take a 10-second burst and assign every third tenth of a second to one call so that you could simultaneously, within that 10-second burst, have 3 phone calls going on, but your ear can't process fast enough to hear the difference between 1/10 of a second and 3/10 of a second. And that's why when you were using your old flip phone, sometimes you'd hear other people's conversations. They don't use that technology anymore because they found a different way with digital equipment to utilize that same 10-second burst, but now they can fill it with, probably 50 different users. So it's really the 5G, not to belabor the point, and I'm sorry that I've rambled on so very long, but 5G really is just, using some of the latest innovations. Dish is using multiple frequencies to do multiple things, as is Verizon and AT&T, and even T-Mobile has at least 4 different frequencies. And as I say, you can look them up. The higher frequencies aren't any more harmful. The lower frequencies are, in my opinion, have the potential to be more harmful because they can penetrate more solid structures, but keep in mind, the FCC limits the amount of output that these antennas can broadcast, and that output is significantly less than the leakage out of your microwave oven. So even if you're on top of the tower in front of the antenna, you would have to stay there all day long to feel any physical warmth that's created from the energy that is, being bombarded on your body and bouncing off. So,
You guys have health studies that have been done on 5G that you can send to the town board here?
I'm sure that they have some kind of, I'm not that familiar with it, with dishes, but I can ask Dish.
Okay, and
think
you're
there's-
telling us that these are safe, basically? Okay. So all
Everything
the
complies with
stories
the
that are out there
FCC's
about 5G and whatnot
are mystifying to
misfounded?
me. Yeah, and the stories that I've heard of people in England setting towers on fire are just mystifying, because most people don't realize this, but there used to be a transcontinental cable that went from, Boston to Los Angeles, I think. But interspersed, and there's one in Batavia, were these microwave towers that were built in like 1940. They look like these huge wasps with their, the tops of their bodies cut off, turned upside down. They're like this strange looking, copper horn. And they had these microwave antennas inside. And they were widely in use. Most people don't realize in the 1940s and 50s, that's how we got transcontinental telephone calls. It wasn't actually a landline, not entirely. So, wireless, I realize, is a big mystery to most people, and even to me. This is not my specialty by any means. I am no expert on wireless. I'm just telling you this. It's my opinion to try and answer your questions. I have to be careful because
So that I know of, I think the FCC, the last study they did was only on 3G. They haven't done it. And frequency does have a physiological effect.
yes.
I work with it every day in my job with medical. So
Right.
frequency can have an effect on your body. So that's what we're asking, because people are wearing, I don't like wearing them, but people wear their watches, and that frequency is going through your body all day long. And then you put your phone up. You can say, have you ever worked and tried different frequencies in somebody, in their body?
No.
I do.
Yeah.
So I know the effects of different frequencies on that. So that's what we're asking for. Yes, there is, where are the studies for 5G? Because if I do understand correctly, the gentleman was from Australia that came up with 5G? Where's he from? And was warning against 5G, of the frequency that it produces and puts out. So we just want to make sure that we have all the research information about 5G.
Well, this is an interesting, and again, I think legally I'm not even supposed to discuss per the Telecom Act of 1996, but I want to engage just because
Sure.
this is a fascinating thing to me, because 5G, the 5G frequency that T-Mobile is using is the exact same frequency that, I don't know if you remember Clearwire. It's their old frequency. It's 2.5 gigahertz. Back when it was 3G, they didn't have anything that could really fully utilize that high frequency. So they had some cellular, PCS antennas and equipment that they were trying to use this higher frequency with. They were trying to do Wi-Fi with it. Nothing really worked. The signal didn't, go that far. They came up with better antennas. They came up with, digital processing that helps to use the higher frequency at the lower power rate, but still at a more compressed signal. So it's fascinating that somebody in Australia thinks that there's a new frequency that's more there's no new frequencies being invented. It's just the way that they are using the existing frequency. And to answer your question, yes, we can send an EME study for this site that shows everything's in compliance. For Dish's stuff, what I'm not sure is we'll have to commission a study if you want everybody that's on the tower. In other words, right now on the tower, there's Verizon. I think Blue Wireless turned into an internet company, right? And they're on the.
Correct.
So there's an internet company that's using an actual 5G frequency, one of the public domain frequencies, and then there would be Dish Wireless. So we can absolutely, do that if that's what the town is. Sounds like that's
We
what the town
definitely,
is.
yes, like some more information, so greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak on this public hearing?
Yes, if I can notify the board too, there will be a fourth applicant for co-location at this very site coming soon. We just received some application documents for that. A different provider, which is the intent of these towers that were installed in the last several years to provide many service provider on one tower as opposed to 4 different towers in the same area.
Well, the question is, how many 5G are up there now? Are there any 5G on that tower?
I don't understand the technology enough.
Okay.
I'm simply administering the zoning requirements that are laid out by this town that requires the use permits for each service provider on these existing structures.
This particular tower, how close is it to residents, houses?
If you're not familiar with this specific site, it is on the town-owned property, adjacent to an existing commercial building. And although it's encompassed by residential occupancies, there's vacant land surrounding the tower site itself. We do have Seneca Place to the west.
That's where they tried to put the development a number of years ago.
Correct. And it escapes me the development that's a little further to the east, but along Walden Avenue, there's a good stretch of the mixed-use multifamily properties. So it's kind of set back a little bit, but not isolated away from all civilization.
Just, my wonder is one 5G fine, but now we start adding, and now you're multiplying that frequency even higher than just one. So that's why I was asking, is there more than one?
Right, and I can say only because I'm of the opinion, and again, it's opinion only, that I don't understand the technology enough to know whether or not it's going to affect anything, but at the same time, our zoning code is laid out to permit the structures, to permit the occupancies, and there's a path to get the information to the town, as well as convey that to the residents that live around these facilities. And this is the perfect avenue to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak on this? Again, anybody else like to speak on the public hearing? And for a third time, I will ask for a motion to close this public hearing.
Motion to close?
May I have a second?
Second?
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on with our regular meeting. We left off with myself, number 5. I'd like to move on to number 5. And this resolves the following individuals hereby appointed to the position of court officer part-time, provisional in the Town Justice Court Department in the Town of Lancaster, contingent upon approval by Erie County Department of Personnel, working not more than 19 3/4 hours per week, that these being part-time positions provide no health insurance, sick days, vacation, or other fringe benefits not specifically mandated for part-time employees. The person's name is Mark Adamberger, court officer, $19.10 per hour. Effective date is May 2nd. He is from Lancaster, New York. Be it further resolved that when Mr. Adamberger is called upon to serve as court officers, they shall receive a minimum of 3 hours pay or pay for the actual number of hours worked, whichever is greater. And be it further resolved that the supervisor of the town of Lancaster shall be authorized to take all necessary action to implement the foregoing. May I get a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Councilmember Dickman is out ill tonight. Councilmember Leary is going to be kind enough to take resolution number 6.
Yes, sir. Mr. Supervisor and honorable town board members, I move the following resolution for adoption. Whereas the municipal home rule law of the state of New York and Chapter 26 of the Town of Lancaster Town Code provide for the adoption and enactment of local laws, and whereas a proposed local law of the year 2022 entitled Flood Damage Prevention Revision of the Code of the Town of Lancaster was introduced to the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster by Councilman Councilmember Dickman on the 4th day of April, 2022. And whereas the town board, acting as lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review, has determined the action as a type 2 action, whereas the town board called for, noticed, and held a public hearing on the proposed local law on April 18th, 2022, where all interested parties were allowed to address the proposed local law. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the town board of the town of Lancaster that 1, the attached local law number 3 of 2022 is hereby adopted, and 2, the local law shall be effective upon its filing with the Secretary of State pursuant to the municipal home rule law.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Councilmember Leary, you have number 7.
Yes, sir. I also move the following resolution for adoption. Whereas Section 467 of the Real Property Tax Law of the State of New York permits the town to grant a partial exemption from real property taxation for persons 65 years of age or older on a graduated scale based upon income, and whereas Erie County has increased the income limit for persons who are 65 years of age or older after the taxable status date with a total income of not more than $29,000 to a total income not exceeding $37,400, and whereas the increase in income eligibility for taxes will not place any undue burden on the taxpaying public, but will materially improve the economic ability of our senior citizens to cope with the ravages of inflation while living on a fixed income, and whereas the town board called for, noticed, and held a public hearing on the proposed senior citizens tax exemption on April 18th, 2022, where all interested parties were allowed to be heard, and whereas the town board deems it in the public's interest to adopt and enact said exemption from real property taxation on said graduated schedule, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Lancaster hereby adopts and authorizes enactment of the following senior citizen tax exemption. Okay, and then we go through the different annual incomes and the amount of tax exemption that each person is entitled to. And exemption granted, real property owned by one or more persons, each of whom is 65 years of age or over, of real property owned jointly, and one of whom is 65 years of age or over, or who becomes 65 years of age after the taxable status date, shall be exempt from taxation by the town of Lancaster to the extent if provided in that following table.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. I'd like to move resolution number 8, whereas Chief William A. Carn, Jr. of the Town of Lancaster Police Department, by letter dated April 21st, 2022, requested authorization for 4 members of the Lancaster Police Department to attend the 2022 New York Tactical Officers Association Training Conference in Verona, New York, from April 25th through the 29th. Now therefore be it resolved that Lieutenant Andrew Spire, Officer Brent Karachi, Officer Phil Karachi, and Officer Adam Swartz of the Town of Lancaster Police Department are hereby authorized to attend the 2022 New York Tactical Officers Association Training Conference in Verona, New York, from April 25th through the 29th. Be it further resolved that the cost of training conference for the 4 officers at the above-mentioned training course is $349.99 per person. The estimated cost of lodging is $1,456. Estimated cost of meals and gas is $600, and hereby authorized an amount not to exceed $3,456 for the actual necessary expenses for 5 days on the specified dates of training. And be it further resolved that all requests for reimbursement must be presented in the form of the original itemized receipts for actual necessary expenses upon submission of proper documentation to the Accounting Department of the Town of Lancaster. May I get a second?
Second?
On the question. On the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes, Councilmember Burkhart, you have number 9 through 12.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and honorable town board members. I'm offering resolutions 9, 10, 11, and 12 for adoption. Whereas by letter dated April 20th, 2022, Patrol Captain Marco Lorenzo has notified that the Lancaster Town Board that since 2018, the police department has been replacing the Panasonic Toughbooks mobile data terminals within the patrol vehicles with Patrol PC Rhino tabs due to the Panasonic models being obsolete and unserviceable. And whereas Captain Lorenzo is requesting authorization to purchase one new Patrol PC Rhino tab from Advanced Electronic Design, Inc., a sole source provider at a cost of $5,782.85 per their quote of QUO-6474 dated 2022-4/8, in accordance with the Town of Lancaster's procurement policy. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster hereby approves the purchase of one new Patrol PC Rhino tab from Advanced Electronic Design, Inc., 344 John Dyche Boulevard, Unit 2, North Attleboro, Massachusetts, a sole source provider in an amount not to exceed $5,782.85 per their quote, dated on 4/8/2022, and to be paid for with funds available in the town's 2022 public safety equipment budget line. Be it further resolved that Lieutenant Michael Duranak is hereby authorized to execute the quote on behalf of the Town of Lancaster.
May I get a second
Second?
on the question, on the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Resolution 10, whereas by bond resolution dated March 15th, 2021, the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster authorized a capital improvements project consisting of the replacement and/or reconstruction of culverts within the Town of Lancaster. And whereas the initial undertaking for this project requires the town to fund the preliminary engineering phase, which consists of professional services for the design specifications and construction management of the various culverts. And whereas by resolution dated April 19th, 2021, the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster entered into agreement with the Tonto Engineering and Architectural Professionals to provide design specifications and construction management for the various culverts within the town for the amount not to exceed $249,112 per their proposal dated March 26th, 2021. And whereas due to typographical errors, the agreement was revised to include insurance requirements with no change in pricing and needs to be reapproved. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster hereby authorizes the supervisor to execute the agreement as presented between the Town of Lancaster and DeTonto Associates to provide the preliminary engineering design phase for capital improvements projects consisting of the replacement and/or reconstruction of various culverts within the Town of Lancaster in the amount not to exceed $249,112 based on terms outlined in Article 3 of their agreement and to be paid for with funds appropriated by the adopted March 15th, 2021 Town Board Bond Resolution.
May I have a second
Second?
on the question, on the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Resolution 11, whereas John Pilato, Highway Superintendent of the Town of Lancaster Highway Department, by letter dated April 27, 2022, has requested authorization for the Highway Superintendent and Deputy Highway Superintendent to attend the New York State Association of Towns Training School in Ithaca, New York, from June 6th through 8th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that the Highway Superintendent John Pilato and Deputy Highway Superintendent Michelle Barbaro of the Town of Lancaster Highway Department are hereby authorized to attend the New York State Association of Towns Training in Ithaca, New York from June 6th through June 8th, 2022. Be it further resolved that the cost of the training conference for two officials at the above-mentioned training course is $110 per person. An estimated cost of lodging is $796 estimated, cost of meals and gas $175, and is hereby authorized in an amount not to exceed $1,191 for actual and necessary expenses for 3 days on the specified dates of training. And be it further resolved that all requests for reimbursement must be presented in the form of original itemized receipts for actual and necessary expenses upon submission of proper documentation to the accounting department of the town of Lancaster.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Resolution 12, whereas the town board has previously duly advertised for bids for the purpose realigning of 3 culverts within the town, Hayward Run, Sugarbush Lane, and Running Brook Drive, and whereas funding for this project is available from the Capital Improvements Project Bond for the replacement and/or reconstruction of various culverts in the town adopted on March 15th, 2021, and whereas 4 bids were received, opened, and reviewed on March 3rd, 2022, and whereas by memo dated March 23rd, 2022, consulting engineer Ed Schiller has informed the board that Tatanto Associates, the design specification and construction management engineers on this project, have recommended awarding the bid to PIM Corporation, Inc., being the lowest responsible base bidder in the amount of $643,750. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town board of the town of Lancaster hereby awards the bid for the town of Lancaster's realigning of 3 culverts located at Harwood Run, Sugarbush Lane, and Running Brook Drive to PIM Corporation, 201 Circle Drive North, Suite 105, Piscataway, New Jersey, in the amount of $643,750, being the lowest responsible base bidder in conformance with the specifications on file in the office of Tatanto Associates Design Professionals, and which will be paid for with funds from the capital improvements, replacement, and/or reconstruction of various culverts in the town project bond adopted on March 15th, 2021, and be it further resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to execute this contract on behalf of the town of Lancaster and to do all things necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution pending the receipt and approval of all required documents, insurance certificates by the town attorney.
May I have a second?
Second?
On the question? On the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. As we mentioned, number 13 is pulled. Councilmember Mazer, you have 14 through 19.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, the town board, I offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas the town board is considering an amendment to the previously approved site plan for Anderson's Frozen Custard submitted by Keith Anderson for the interior renovation, addition of a drive-through lane, and modification to the outdoor patio and parking lot of the existing site located on a 1.2-acre parcel at 4855 Spencer Road in the town. And whereas the town of Lancaster Planning Board has reviewed the environmental impact of this project pursuant to seeker regulations at the meeting on March 16, 2022, and recommended that a negative declaration be issued. Whereas the town board has duly considered the plans for the construction project using the short environmental assessment form, criteria for determining significance set forth in seeker regulations, and such other information deemed appropriate, including the recommendation from the town of Lancaster Planning Board. And whereas the town board has identified the relevant areas of environmental concern, has taken a hard look at these areas, and has made a reasoned elaboration of the basis for its determination. Whereas the proposed action has been labeled an unlisted action under seeker. Now therefore be it resolved the town board of Lancaster that, number 1, this project is described as an interior renovation, addition of a drive-through lane, and modification to the outdoor patio and parking lot of the existing site will not result in any large and important impacts, and therefore is an action which will not have any significant adverse impact on the environment, and therefore the board issues an attached negative declaration of the environmental significance for the reasons stated therein. 2, the town clerk shall file a copy of the negative declaration in the file for the project. 3, the town attorney's office shall prepare and file a notice of determination of non-significance with the petitioner and with all required New York State and Erie County agencies, filing a copy of the letter to transmittal. Number 4, this resolution is effective immediately.
May I get a second?
Second.
On the question? On the roll.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
No.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Resolution number 15, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas Keith Anderson, owner of Anderson's Frozen Custard, has submitted an application for a special use permit to operate a restaurant on the premises located at 4855 Chance Road in the town of Lancaster, New York, in accordance with provisions of Chapter 400 zoning Section 18B1A of the Code of the Town of Lancaster, and whereas Section 400-78 of the zoning chapter of the Town Code, the Town of Lancaster requires that the Town Board conduct a public hearing before issuance of a special use permit for the use as proposed. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Chapter 400 zoning, Article 14 Administration and Enforcement, Section 78 Special Use Permits of the Code of the Town of Lancaster, a public hearing on the proposed special use permit for Keith Anderson, owner of Anderson's Frozen Custard, to operate a restaurant on the premises located at 4855 Transit Road, Town of Lancaster, New York, will be held at Lancaster Town Hall, 21 Central Avenue, Lancaster, New York, on the 16th day of May, 2022, at 7:15 p.m. local time, and that the notice of the time and place of such hearing be published in the Lancaster Bee, a newspaper of general circulation in the town, be posted in the town bulletin board, and that a copy of such notice of hearing be referred to the Erie County Department of Planning pursuant to Section 239M of the General Municipal Law, which notice shall be in the form attached hereto and made part hereof.
Can I get a second
Second.
on the question?
Got a question. Why are we issuing a special use permit to Anderson's Frozen Custard, which has been there for a long period of time? I'm not sure how many years, but what's the purpose?
We made renovations to the building, and as the new code requires and other format required, a special use permit be issued, and at the point of alteration is the time that it needs to come into compliance with the zoning code.
This is set in the public hearing, though.
This is to set the public hearing for a special use permit, and if I can just make comment to this board, specifically to the interior renovations of this building. The project that was cited at the previous resolution is yet to be made recommendations, since there are some zoning items that need to be satisfied. It's not ready for a recommendation. This allows the applicant to operate the interior portion of that restaurant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas the Town Board is considering the rezone application submitted by Jeffrey Palumbo of Barclay Damon LLP on behalf of WKP2 LLC, Oak Ridge MFR Holdings LLC, and RDNW LLC for the 4.9 acre parcel located at 338 Harris Hill Road, from light commercial to multifamily residential mixed-use district, to correct current zoning misclassification, which will bring the property into conformity with zoning code within the town of Lancaster. Whereas the town of Lancaster Planning Board has reviewed the environmental impact of this rezone project pursuant to seeker regulations at their meeting April 6, 2022, and recommended that a negative declaration be issued. Whereas the town board has duly considered the plans for the rezone project using the long environmental assessment form, the criteria for determining significance set forth in the seeker regulations, and such information deemed appropriate, including the recommendation for the town of Lancaster Planning Board. Whereas the town board has identified the relevant areas of environmental concern, has taken a hard look at these areas and made a reasoned elaboration for the basis of its determination. And whereas the proposed action has been labeled a type 1 action under seeker, now therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Lancaster that number 1, based upon the town board's thorough and careful review of the proposed rezone of the 4.9 acre property located at 338 Harris Hill Road, from light commercial to multifamily residential mixed-use district, submitted by Jeff Palumbo and Barclay Damon LLP on behalf of WKP2 LLC, Oak Ridge MFR Holdings LLC, and RDNW LLC will not result in any significant environmental impacts, and hereby issues a negative declaration pursuant to seeker for the reasons stated therein. 2, the town clerk shall file a copy of the negative declaration in the file for the project. 3, the town attorney's office shall prepare and file a notice of determination of non-significance with the petitioner and with all required state and Erie County agencies filing a copy of letter of transmittal. And number 4, this resolution is effective immediately.
Make it a second. I'll second it. On the roll?
Is this, didn't we ask to see designs for this?
No,
Which one?
This is the project right at the corner of Worley and Harris Hill.
On the right side?
On the right, the Clover, or what was it?
English tutor, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that tutor, the tutor area?
So we're back on the
English
question then,
manor.
right? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't,
Yeah, I thought we,
Yeah, Matt, could you explain what's going on here? How many
Yes.
apartments, or what they plan to build in there?
Certainly.
And your opinion on whether the traffic is going to be better or worse if this rezoning goes through?
Well, what the attempt is to reclassify the zoning district to a lesser intensity of use from the light commercial to the mixed-use multifamily district. They're not proposing any site changes to the property, but rather renovating the existing structures to accommodate more apartment units that are currently on site. At last estimation, it was anywhere between 5 and 6 apartments in one building, and the market is driving them in that direction. They have yet to propose any changes and have a clear understanding that should they physically change the site plan review application would need to be submitted to the planning board for review and a recommendation to this board. Now, as to the opinion on the traffic counts and the amount of traffic that's going to be generated there, my opinion doesn't matter, but the zoning code does. And for each occupancy, there is a minimum standard for parking requirements based on the use and occupancy of those buildings. The residential uses are the lowest in that standard, meaning you only need 1 or 2 parking spaces per residential unit, whereas an office building or a restaurant or other commercial uses have a higher intensity of parking requirements because of the increased traffic to those uses. So to answer the second part of your question, apartment living does require less parking strain on the property than a commercial use.
Okay, and again, your opinion, or if it's already the facts, is this zoned improperly right now?
At our last adoption, it was zoned in the light commercial district because of the overall use and occupancy of that property. It's just a reclassification. As it stands today, it's an existing non-conforming use for the half a dozen apartment units that are on this property, knowing that there's at least 6 buildings on this property, all with a commercial occupancy. So, they're calling it a misclassification. The property was zoned as a light commercial, and it created an existing non-conforming use, which is very common throughout the town and in most municipalities.
So would somebody be in violation of the current code?
No.
In the way it stands right now?
No, this is what's more referred to as the grandfather clause, meaning that the existing non-conforming use can remain up until it's either destroyed or removed or made compliant, and expansion of those non-conforming uses are limited, I believe, to 25% to additions.
Thank you.
on the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
No.
Councilmember Leary?
No.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Okay, do we go on with the next resolution if that one's tabled, I guess, or?
It's failed.
It's failed, so,
So what, Tom, number 18 make any sense then? Or, sorry.
17?
The amend, number 17, the amendment. It's 16 failed?
You can still amend the map if you want.
No. Okay, and you go through, they're going to vote against it.
yeah.
Do you want to pull it?
I'll
table it?
No, I'll put it through, and if they vote no, and then it's,
All right.
right now, it's an existing non-conforming use for the 6 know, it's going to be a lower zoning threshold, so, you know, I'll put it on and see what happens. So, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution, move for its adoption. Whereas whereas a public hearing was held on March 7th, 2022 on the petition of Jeffrey Palumbo, Barclay Damon LLP on behalf of WKP2 LLC and Oak Ridge MFR Holdings and LLC and RDNW LLC for the rezone of the parcel of land located at 338 Harris Hill Road, Lancaster, New York, from a light commercial to multifamily residential mixed-use district. And whereas the Planning Board of the Town of Lancaster recommended approval of the rezone at its April 6, 2022 meeting, whereas seeker review was completed on April 6. I can't because it's negative, it was not a negative declaration. So I guess at this time I'll pull this resolution.
Okay.
18, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution, move for its adoption. Whereas by letter dated April 26, 2022, in the Town of Lancaster's Department of Public Works, Recreation, and Forestry has advised the Town Board that they no longer has use for a storage box, a Lesco sprayer, and a 2005 MSA dump trailer, and has requested the Town Board deem these items to be surplus equipment and permit to be placed on an online auction. And whereas the Town Board has given due consideration to the request of the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry and deems it a judicious decision to declare the beforementioned items to be surplus equipment and permit placement of the said items on an online auction. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster hereby declares a storage box, a Lesco sprayer, and a 2005 MSA dump trailer to be surplus equipment and authorizes the Deputy Highway Superintendent to place said items upon for public bid at the online auction with Auctions International, 11167 Big Tree Road, East Aurora, New York, 14052, commencing May 5th, 2022, and concluding on May 20th, 2022, with the funds received from the auction to be made payable to the Town of Lancaster, delivered to the Town Supervisor's Office.
May I get a second
Second.
on the question, on the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes.
Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board, I offer the following resolution, move for its adoption. Whereas the Municipal Home Rule Law of the State of New York in Chapter 23 of the Town of Lancaster provide for adoption and enactment of local laws, and whereas a proposed local law of the year 2022 has been introduced entitled Schedule B Revision, which will amend the code of the Town of Lancaster by updating and correcting lot sizes within zoning 400 attachment 2, Schedule B, 400 attachment 2-1, 2-3, and 2-5, and whereas the proposed local law of 2022 shall be in the form of attached hereto and made part hereof, and whereas pursuant to the Town of Lancaster Code and the Municipal Home Rule Law, a public hearing is required on the proposed law. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster that a public hearing for the proposed local law is hereby set for May 16th, 2022 at 7:15 p.m. 2, the Town Clerk has directed to provide notice of the public hearing as required by law. And 3, this resolution is effective immediately.
May I get a second
Second.
on the question, on the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Councilmember Burkhart, you have our last resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and Honorable Town Board. I'm offering Resolution 20 for adoption. Whereas Town of Lancaster Highway Superintendent John Pilato, by letter dated April 26, 2022, has advised the Town Board that the Highway Department no longer has use for a 2003 Volvo dump truck with approximately 120,000 miles, and is asking that the Town Board deem this item to be a surplus equipment and permit the Highway Superintendent to be offered on an online auction. Whereas the Town Board has given due consideration to the request of the Highway Superintendent and deems it a judicious decision to declare the before-mentioned dump truck to be surplus equipment and permit placement of said item on an online auction. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Lancaster hereby declares the before-mentioned a 2003 Volvo dump truck to be surplus equipment and authorizes the highway superintendent to place said items up for public bid at an online auction with Auctions International, 11167 Big Tree Road, East Aurora, New York, 14052, starting May 5th, 2022, and concluding on May 20th, 2022, with the funds received from said auction to be made payable to the town of Lancaster and delivered to the town supervisor's office.
May I get a second
Second.
on the question?
I do have a question for the Deputy Highway Superintendent. This is not, we're no longer paying for this, it's not on any kind of a bond or anything, I take it it's all paid off?
As far as I know, correct, it's from 1993, so it's over a 20-year-old truck.
That says 2000?
It's a 2000.
2003, you mean?
I thought it's a 2003, isn't it? Or is it
I'm sorry, I heard 1993, but it's 2003, so this is completely paid off, and,
Right, and it needs thousands and thousands of dollars to put into it to get it to run. It's just sitting there.
okay, thank you.
On the roll?
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Councilmember Mazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Okay, we're going to go on to communications.
This one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, numbers 263 is for resolution. Number 264, received and filed. 265 was a resolution on 418. Number 266 is for resolution. 267 and 268, received and filed. 269 for resolution. 270 and 271, planning committee. 272 and 273 are received and filed. 274, resolution this evening. 275 for resolution. 276 and 277 received and filed. 278 is the town attorney. 279 and 280 are received and filed. 281, resolution tonight. 282 and 83 received and filed. 284 is for resolution, and 285 is for resolution, and 286 is for resolution. 287 through 290 received and filed. 291 through 294 are resolution tonight. 295 is for resolution. 296 received and filed. 297, resolution tonight. And 298 is town attorney. At this time, we'll ask anybody that wants to speak to the town board on any subject matter. Please state your name and address.
Hello, everyone. Senator Lancaster B. Just I'll be as brief as I'm capable of. Real quick, just the expectation for the dish gentleman. Just for him, he just needs to bring back more materials on studies and stuff on 5G. Is that what you were asking of him?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Fair enough. As far as contract negotiations with the police, so are we getting close to those? It
Yes,
sounds
we
like
are.
You're getting ready to wrap those up next week, or in 2 weeks even?
We have a meeting next week with them.
Okay, all right. What's pending right now? What's making
I
sure that?
cannot talk about contract negotiations.
Okay, fair enough. But you are expecting it down the pike here pretty soon.
I'm sorry?
You are expecting it down the pike here pretty soon for those to be wrapped
I
up.
am.
All right. Perfect. For the grant program for in the work session, you were discussing flooding plains. I think it was. There's areas that possible flooding is happening along Harris Hill and Bailey. And I was just wondering, what exactly was that plan? How bad is the flooding around that area?
It's along Elliott Creek. It floods every year,
Okay.
especially down in Bowmansville. They get flooded out frequently, and the creek floods up. Stony gets flooded out all the time.
Okay.
So
all right.
it's that whole corridor.
And this was a 75-20, was this a state or a federal program?
It's a FEMA grant, federal.
Okay, it's federal, okay. And then what if you ran into private property along that pathway?
That's part
I
of
heard Mr.
That's part of what the grant will fund to research.
Okay, so you do the research and then you kind of cross that bridge when you get there?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
May I add to your comment there as far as the flooding, as far as the questioning, and just so that this board is aware also, Ellicott Creek from pretty much the pavement road, Ransom Road area, all the way to Transit Road has a very large swath of floodplain. So in the creek itself, there is a floodway, and the floodplain at Stony Road stretches from almost Pleasant View Drive to north of Genesee Street to the edge of the thruway in a large area that runs through there. And I believe the plan is in place there to help mitigate the impacts of the floodplain on downstream parcels.
Fair enough, thank you. And then my last question, just, and I understand this is a public hearing, it just makes it easier if you feel like answering, feel free, I understand you have no obligation, because I'm just addressing it. But 338 Harris Hill, what was going there again? Were those apartments that, they didn't get their
Yes.
negative declaration, it seems?
Yeah, there's apartments we're going to be going in there.
Okay.
Harris Hill has major problems with traffic.
Okay.
So again, I'm not for putting apartments anywhere in that area that are just going to add to, the problems that already
Right.
exist.
Okay,
So,
fair enough. All right, those are all my questions. Thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome.
Anybody else like to speak?
Hi, my name is Jerry Blanchard. I'm speaking on behalf of Lee Chawaniak, who couldn't be here tonight, and he sends his apologies that he couldn't be here. But he asked me to come and speak for him, so I'm here. And an email sent to Town Engineer Ed Schiller, New York State Department of Agricultural Markets Animal Health Inspector Michaela Cameron wrote in her inspection report, "Before I can approve your claim for payment, the items in red need to be completed prior to signing off on your claim. Once those items have been completed and you receive your certificate of occupancy, please let me know. We will have to document those changes and add them to your file. Your contract is currently still in internal review for the extension, so we are waiting for fiscal and legal departments to sign off, so I'm held up from approving your claim due to the status of your contract. In July of 2021, the town bonded $485,000 to finance the construction of the dog shelter, such amount to be offset by any state, federal, county, or local funds. Since the town has the funds from bonding to pay off construction costs, will the process to get a town inspection and occupancy permit be held up until the town addresses the state's task to be performed lists?"
well, yeah, the stuff's got to be completed.
Right. Before, yeah.
It can
So
be-
I read those off in the beginning of what still needs to be done to satisfy the state for the new dog kennel.
Okay. What's the earliest that we can expect the shelter to become operational if the inspection tasks have to be performed or not?
Once these updates are done, we just have to let them know, and they don't have to come back out
Okay.
to inspect it again.
Okay. Next question. If the town decides to apply for additional state grants to complete additional tasks cited in the inspection, will this process impact receiving the state funding of the $228,750 in the current grant?
No, it's a separate grant that I do believe it's in January 2023 it's due by. So it's a totally separate grant.
Okay. Next, in the email that Town Engineer Schiller received from the state, it is written, "I encourage you to utilize the staff on hand as resources for future designs. Your DCO and veterinary staff will be very valuable in designing a new isolation facility if you so choose. You have a wonderful building to work with now and very dedicated staff. I hope you will apply for future grant funds in the future. What role did DCO Karn play in the shelter project outside of working with the town grant writer to forge the animal companion grant application?"
That was technically before mine. Bob, if you know about...
Say that again. I didn't follow the last part of that. I'm sorry.
What role did DCO Karn play in the shelter project outside of working with the town grant writer to forge the animal companion grant application?
Well, if I remember correctly, she wrote parts of it and worked with the Rotella to come up with a grant that went forward at that point. After that, she was kind of taken off the project for a while, but we recently restored her back to the project, and she plays a very important role. Some of
She
these
played a
things.
role throughout with our engineer as well, throughout the whole process.
Okay.
Well, that's not completely true, but for a while there, she wasn't talking to the state. She was taken off of that committee, but she's back on there now. So she plays a very important role. She's identified some of these issues that the state came in and also identified as an issue. So we're working with the builder right now and our town engineer to get those completed so we can get the facility opened up and, get it done.
Did DCO Karn help design the building?
Yes.
And made amendments throughout. I mean,
Yeah, we had several review meetings, she was sent plans, she commented on the plans, back and forth several times. before
The building
final-
started out as a 1,200 square foot building.
Before the final set was sent out for the final construction.
And
I
then
mean,
we increased it to 1,600, and she came back to the town board asking for an increase in the size, which we agreed with. And we increased the size of the grant.
we incorporated a lot of her suggestions throughout the process.
Okay. Was Karn involved in estimating construction costs?
No, she wasn't involved in that at all.
No.
The estimated cost came back and far exceeded what we were told was going to happen, even with the increase in the size of the building. So, yeah, it came back as a shock that it actually, I think the bids at that point were $900,000 to $1 million.
I think, my opinion was,
Close to $1 million.
if we would have built the building that we first agreed upon, we would have came in under cost, and then went for a grant for all the additional stuff. Instead, we kind of added all this stuff.
No, we didn't.
We did,
That's not my opinion is completely different than that.
we did.
This-
Some things had to be changed in there after we went to the SPCA because it really wasn't in compliance, so we learned some new things when we went there. Building the building up to the size that it became, where it was just, those bids came back so high. We were not told that that was going to increase the cost of the building at that point in time. I worked with DCO Karn on this. When we came up with the bids a second time, when there were changes made in there, again, we all saw that that was done. The final changes that were done in there, I don't think DCO Karn had much to do with that. But again, and then we came in, and there were changes made to lower the cost of the building itself. So I don't know what was changed in the final thing or exactly who made those changes, but it was to lower the cost. So it was between the contractor and Mr. Schiller, and I don't know who else was involved in it at that point. Again, the slope of the floor was something we've been pointing out for quite a while. It was an issue that Jean first brought to our attention, so she was instrumental in that. And, some of the other things that had to be redone in there, she was very instrumental in that as well. Tightening up the chain link fence in there so the dogs couldn't push through the doors. So she was very, very instrumental in getting all that stuff done. So there were some increased costs that weren't really covered in the last rendition of the project. If we had asked for the bigger amount in the beginning, maybe this wouldn't have happened. So that's my opinion.
And that's why it's costing the taxpayers $126,000 more so far?
How much?
$126,000 more than what the grant was given?
I think it's a little bit more than that. But again, like I said, there's differences of opinions here. And I had no problem supporting the needs that they needed. I just thought we should have done it in a better order. Okay? And if there were all these other needs afterwards, I think we should have went for another grant, built the building that we had to build, that we basically designed out first, and then go for the other grant. That was a 75% grant. We only had to pay 25%. The initial cost, I believe, was $175,000, Ed, for the smaller one, the 1,200 square foot, 180 something. I think the new cost with the addition going to 1,600 square feet, which the town board fully supported, was estimated between $285 and $320. We ballparked it at $305.
Correct.
Which meant the taxpayers would pay 25% of that, which is roughly $75,000 and change. Unfortunately, there were some requests that were added in there that brought the cost up. And again, I disagree with doing it that way. My thought was, let's build the building that we said we're going to build with the grant, and then it still would have been a beautiful building. We could have made enhancements to it then with another grant and chased that down furthermore. This way, it would lessen the burden off the taxpayers. We're still, I believe there's 75% grants out there still again. So versus paying everything above $305,000 is 100% on the taxpayers. That was my fight. That was what I was against. Anything above the 305 was not covered by the grant, and it's 100% paid for by the taxpayers.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to add, just because it is worth understanding that estimating versus construction was pre versus post-COVID. There was about a 35% cost increase because of COVID. I mean, that's a given. You can ask any contractor that. That was out of our control.
And none of the requests that were brought in there were anything that were outrageous. There were things that should be in a dog control facility. So, again, the higher grant in the first place would have probably got it done. It is what it is at this point. We're trying to make sure it gets done. There may be a need for additional grant monies, but we're going to take a look at that and see if we can get that. But the board will decide that based on, when this thing is done.
And nobody knew when COVID was going to hit, but my feelings were if we went forward with the original plan, we would have, I think, gotten this under the gun of COVID, and it wouldn't have been an issue. Certainly, COVID did cause.
Well, I was part of this whole thing from the beginning. I don't remember that being discussed. We're going to go ahead with this. We went out to the SPCA to take a look at how they did things there to make sure our facility was in line with requirements. So again, I don't remember anybody saying at some point, well, we got to do it this way right now. And then the stuff that was, came out of that visit wasn't anything specifically that was forced upon us, the town board. Again, we kept asking if the price was going to change, and we were told it wasn't going to.
But
So
those
again,
visits, in my opinion, should have been done way beforehand with the original, and then we could have said, hey, you know what, we need 500,000. We need this, this, and this. And the process to me was not proper. Again, we're on the outside kind of, and we're kind of watching things go through and voting on things that way. And this is what was presented. What was presented to myself, as well as yourself, is that we needed an increase to go from 175 to about 305 to extend it to 1,600 square feet. All the other stuff was kind of after the gun. I mean, if we needed more, we should have went for more. I would have had no problems going for more, but we should have done it properly. And I think that we kind of held back. I think the steps were not in place properly, and I think it held up the project.
Well, I mean, and, I will say timing is everything. Most of the reviews with the SPCA and all those meetings that we had reviewing and stuff like that was after the grant award. It was after the estimate had already been submitted. Ideally, should have been spent a year before we submitted the grant, planning out the entire project, so we knew. I mean, that's why, luckily, they've given us the heads up on next January's grant, so that, okay, hey, now we can sit down and, we know every soup, nut, and dot every I. For this one, we had roughly 4 weeks to put the grant together and submit it, which we did. There was a grant writer change in that process that took place. And then it was after we got the grant that we said, all right, now we got to sit down and figure out what's this thing going to look like, really? What's it going to...
Prior year, they missed the deadline for the grant.
Prior year, they did miss the deadline.
They missed the deadline.
So, planning should have been better up front, but because of the time frame on the grant, that wasn't available.
The only thing we do now is move forward.
Was DCO Karn involved in the construction bidding processes and selection of construction contractor, or involved in the site plan approval process where the size of the building was erroneously stated at 2,900 square feet?
Bidding, no. I mean, it's public bid. It's municipal law. I mean, it's just, you put it out and low bid wins the day. So there's nothing to be involved with in that as far as that goes. It's just, reviewed the documents before they went out, yes, but after they're out there, it's open the bids up, public opening, low bid. If it's a, legitimate contractor, the town has no choice to not award the contract to them.
Who came up with the size of the building?
That was a combination of DCO and myself. I mean, she gave us sketches to start with. We kind of put them together, drew them, went back and forth. And at the end of the day, the last revision, she gave us a sketch. We drew it up.
She was a part of the
Yes.
approval of the size of the building?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't it true that DCO Karn did not have any shelter construction oversight authority, but had to go to the town board and have it approve change orders to add materials or correct conditions to meet agriculture and markets grant conditions and regulations? And wasn't DCO Karn removed from the committee?
It's been 5.
In fact, didn't the state inspection team admonish to the town for not involving DCO Karn in the construction effort?
No, she was there more than I was, to be honest with you, during.
No, she was taken off of the committee for a while there. That was specifically done. And then we put her back on recently. So I don't know if her words were admonished or not from the state. But yeah, for a while there, she wasn't supposed to be reaching out independently to the state in this process. Again, we put her back on there not too long ago.
But some of the change orders that were okayed that were first initially okayed by the ag and markets, like how high the walls were fine with the agricultural markets.
Well, we modified the design to lower the cost of the construction, which they approved. And then since then, any of the changes.
That we had change orders for the different sizes of the fencing. We had changed different sizes of the block walls.
We changed the height of the block walls, we changed the size of the fencing.
But the initial grant that we applied for was okayed by the ags and markets, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And then we we added to that price.
correct.
Okay, there is a 5-minute time limit. We're well past the
I'm
5
done.
minutes, so we have to kind
I'm
of,
done. Thank you.
Okay,
I was just
thank
letting them finish talking. All right, thank you so
Ms.
much.
Blanchard, your first name again?
Jerry, J-E-R-R-Y. E-R-R-Y.
Okay, sorry. Thank you very much.
okay. Anybody else like to speak? I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session for the 3 items that I mentioned earlier.
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
On the roll, please.
Who was the second?
Mr. Mazur.
Councilmember Burkhardt?
Yes.
Councilmember Leary?
Sir. Yes.
Councilmember Mazur?
Yes.
Supervisor Rufino?
Yes. Thank you for attending. Everybody have a great night. Matt, we're going to,
Me first?
yeah.
Thank you.
That's why they could use.
Chief, we're going to do Matt first. We're going to do Matt's executive first.
I would assume.